Most people believe saving cash is the safest thing they can do with their money. It feels responsible. It feels disciplined. It feels like a shield against uncertainty. But in a system designed the way ours is, saving cash doesn't protect you. It quietly keeps you stuck. What looks like the safest choice slowly becomes the one that limits your future the most. And the harsh truth is that this system depends on people mistaking emotional comfort for financial security. The world teaches you to save, not because it benefits you, but because the system needs savers to stay predictable. If regular people stayed fearful of investing, stayed loyal to their banks, stayed satisfied earning crumbs of interest while inflation eats everything in sight, the system would remain perfectly balanced for everyone except the saver. By the end of this video, you'll understand why cash creates the illusion of safety, why keeping money still is punished in a world that rewards movement, and why the habits that feel the most responsible can become the very reason you never move forward. Picture someone logging into their bank account, proud of watching their savings grow little by little. The number goes up. It feels good. It feels like progress. But something invisible is happening at the same time. The value of that money is shrinking. Cash carries emotional safety. It makes you feel prepared. It makes you feel in control. It's simple and easy to understand. Cash doesn't fluctuate like the market. It doesn't crash overnight. It doesn't require research, knowledge, or strategies. It just sits there, calm and obedient. But inflation is not calm. It is not obedient. It moves whether you participate or not. A $10,000 emergency fund sitting still will not be worth $10,000 next year. It will buy less food, less gas, fewer essentials, fewer opportunities. You don't see the loss because it doesn't come with alarms or warning signs. Inflation is subtle, silent, polite. It never announces the theft. It simply erodes. And here's the trap. Emotional safety hides financial vulnerability. People don't measure value. They measure comfort, and comfort is exactly what the system uses to keep savers stuck. But that's only the first layer, because the system doesn't just let your savings lose value. It actively punishes you for saving. If saving money is so responsible, why does the system punish savers? Look at the math. For decades, average bank interest rates have consistently stayed below the inflation rate, meaning the bank pays you 0.5% while inflation takes 3 to 8%. Even when high-yield savings accounts appear attractive, they still lose ground in real terms. Banks borrow your money at almost zero cost. They lend it out at 5%, 10%, 20% rates. They profit from your safety while giving you nothing meaningful in return. Savers quietly subsidize the system. Meanwhile, those who take risks, investors, institutions, corporations, multiply wealth using money borrowed from the very savers who think they're being cautious. The people who play the game win because the people who avoid the game provide the fuel. This is the invisible deal society never explains. Those who keep money still lose to those who keep money moving. But inflation and low interest rates are only part of the trap. The real power behind saving lies not in the numbers, but in psychology. There's a reason people cling to cash even when they know it's not helping them. Humans fear loss more than they desire gain. Losing $100 feels worse than gaining $200 feels good. That imbalance drives nearly every financial decision ordinary people make. Investing feels like stepping off a cliff. Saving feels like putting both feet firmly on the ground. Imagine someone who has $5,000 and has two options. Put it into the market where it could earn 7 to 10% a year, or leave it in the bank where it earns next to nothing. Logically, the market wins. Emotionally, the bank wins. The bank feels safe. The market feels dangerous, even if the danger is mostly imaginary. The truth is that emotional risk feels bigger than mathematical risk, and that single fact explains why millions of people avoid wealth building their entire lives. This isn't a personal failing. It's a psychological reflex, and companies know precisely how to use that reflex to keep you out of the wealth building system. Banks sell security. Governments sell stability. Financial advertising sells guaranteed outcomes. Investment opportunities, on the other hand, sell uncertainty. Most people choose the feeling over the reality. But the system doesn't thrive when people store money. It thrives when people move it. The economy doesn't grow when people hoard cash. It grows when people spend, borrow, invest, and circulate money. And the modern financial system is built around that movement. Consumption keeps corporations alive. Borrowing keeps banks alive. Spending keeps governments alive. Circulation keeps markets alive. Saving cash slows the system. That's why the system punishes savers through inflation and rewards borrowers with artificially low interest rates. When governments print new money, they dilute the purchasing power of those who hold cash. It's not a mistake. It's a feature. Your savings lose value to encourage you to re-enter the system. When you spend, the economy grows. When you invest, markets expand. When you borrow, banks profit. When you sit still, the system pushes you until you move again. This is why the wealthy rarely hold on to cash. They don't store value. They deploy it. Wealthy people do not save cash. They convert it. Cash becomes real estate. Cash becomes stocks. Cash becomes businesses. Cash becomes intellectual property. Cash becomes ownership, which rises with inflation. The wealthy know that cash decays, like food left out on the counter. They know inflation eats it. They know banks exploit it. They know opportunity costs compound worse than interest. So they move cash into assets that appreciate, assets that generate income, assets that multiply, assets that survive recessions, bear markets, and political cycles. Meanwhile, the average saver collects cash believing they're doing the right thing. They hold on to it because they fear losing it. But that fear steals far more over the long term than any market dip ever could. Let $5,000 sit in a bank account for 10 years, and it becomes a weakened version of itself. Put the same $5,000 into an asset, and it becomes a worker, one that never sleeps, never rests, never demands overtime. The wealthy understand this instinctively, but the average saver hesitates, not because they lack intelligence, but because they were taught that safety means stillness. Saving feels safe because it delays hard decisions. It allows people to avoid learning investing, avoid understanding risk, avoid taking uncomfortable steps toward wealth building, avoid confronting financial gaps they've ignored for years. It's easier to stay in cash and say, "I'm waiting for the right moment," than to admit you don't know where to start. And that hesitation becomes a habit, a cycle, a place of emotional refuge that slowly becomes a cage. Someone waits 5 years for the perfect time to invest. Someone keeps $20,000 in cash just in case. Someone avoids opportunities because they're not ready yet. Someone chooses savings accounts because at least it's safe. But safety without strategy becomes stagnation. And stagnation is expensive. The system benefits from your inaction, because as long as you keep saving instead of growing, you remain exactly where institutions prefer you, stable, predictable, unthreatening, and dependent. But that's just the visible part of the trap. The deeper problem is that cash becomes a form of emotional comfort, and comfort is one of the costliest habits in the world. Cash feels good because it feels certain. It feels like control. It feels like breathing room. But comfort is expensive when it stops you from acting. People who rely on cash for safety miss opportunities during recessions because they're waiting for stability. They miss buying assets at discounts because they're afraid of dips. They miss compounding years because they hesitate for months. They miss wealth because they chase certainty. Certainty is the biggest financial illusion of all. Cash tells you, you're safe today. Assets tell you, you might grow tomorrow. Only one of those messages leads anywhere. The comfort of cash is seductive. The comfort of cash is limiting. The comfort of cash becomes a place where dreams stop expanding. People tell themselves they'll invest one day when things are less chaotic. But that day rarely comes, because life never stops being chaotic, and the system never stops punishing those who wait for the perfect moment. Cash is a resting place, not a destination. A tool, not a strategy. A beginning, not an end. But saving becomes a trap when it becomes identity, when it becomes the core of your financial worldview, when you rely on it to solve problems it was never designed to solve. And, once you understand the trap, everything becomes clearer. Saving cash isn't wrong. It's necessary. It's the first step in building stability. But relying on cash as a long-term financial strategy is exactly how people stay stuck. Inflation erodes it. Banks exploit it. Fear protects it. Comfort freezes it. And the system quietly encourages all of this. Because the safest feeling habits are often the ones that keep you exactly where you are. Understanding why saving feels safe is the first step to breaking the pattern. The moment you realize that emotional safety and financial security are not the same thing, everything begins to shift. Security doesn't come from holding money. Security comes from learning how to move it, wisely, intentionally, confidently. Cash can protect you today, but only knowledge can protect your future. And once you stop mistaking comfort for progress, your entire financial life begins to change.